The fat controller looked at the treacherous sight of the beautiful Tidmouth sheds being engulfed in flames as Flynn the fire engine fought the fire. "I'm sorry, sir. I can't do much and make much progress without my hose." "I'm sorry, Flynn," said the fat controller. "I should never have sent you on this mission if your trailer is missing." "It's all right, sir. I just wonder what could have happened to the trailer," he said. "Maybe if I had it, I'd be able to fight this fire quite better, and Tidmouth sheds wouldn't be in great peril." "You're trying your best, Flynn," said the fat controller. "That's what matters." But there was no hope of saving Tidmouth sheds. Bert's Big Scare. One afternoon, Mike the miniature engine was having a rest at Osborough Junction. "Today's been a productive day," he said. Sometimes, he thought, it's really tiring to be such a little engine who works with lots of heavy ballast trucks and no snobby passengers calling it a toy railway. Just then, Oliver the Great Western engine sauntered in with a special surprise. "Oh, Mike, hello," whistled Oliver. Oliver, Bert, and Toad the brake van were very excited to surprise Mike. Then they all whistled. Mike jumped. "Bust my buffers! You guys nearly gave me a heart attack and are shaking my boiler. What are you doing?" "Bert, is that you?" said Mike. "Yes, it is," said Bert. "I'm back from the works and I'm ready to be really useful on Sodor." "Yes, me, the golden oldie, is back to teach young little Mike the way of the wool." "Stop making fun of me," said Mike. Oliver left Bert on the tracks and he and Toad puffed away, leaving Bert and Mike to talk. "How have things been here while I was away at Crewe?" asked Bert. "What have I missed?" "You've missed plenty. Farmer Willie's made so many spills on the road." "Well, of course," said Bert. "He'll never learn the way of the tractor, will he?" "Ooh, and did my railway visitors ever return?" said Bert chirpily. "No, they didn't. But Mr. Fergus Duncan, the small railway controller, says they will soon. And hopefully Rex will return from Crewe. How's Rex? Is he still all hooked up on falling after wool?" said Mike. "Farmer Willie says he's sorry." "Oh, Rex will be in Crewe for a while. There's a problem with his boiler. They found a little cloth in it." "Huh!" said Mike. "Well, I hope he gets better soon." He will. Just before I left on Oliver's flatbed, Rex and I were talking about how Halloween is coming up." "Oh, yes, of course," said Mike. "Mr. Fergus Duncan isn't all that excited in the festivities." "Why ever not?" said Bert. "They were going to have a special party for us in Crewe, but since I was leaving, I didn't get to participate," said Bert sadly. Mike felt sorry for Bert. "Oh well then, I'm sure Rex and Jock are having fun in Crewe with Frank." "Yes," said Bert, "they are." "And I was planning a big scare between us," said Bert, "but they weren't interested." "I can totally fathom why," said Mike. "You're not exactly a talented engine, so to speak. You're not scary, you scare easy." "I do not," said Bert, "and I'll show you." "How do you propose you'll do that?" said Mike. "You don't know how to scare another engine." "Wait and see," said Bert, and he steamed away as quickly as he could. Mike was surprised. "I'll show that little Mike who's a scary engine." "Huh," said Mike. "I didn't say anything to offend him, did I?" The fat controller ordered all the main engines to go to Tidmouth sheds at once. They were not happy, but they puffed as quickly as they could and as fast as their wheels would work. The fat controller greeted all the engines at Tidmouth sheds. The engine surveyed the damage. Flynn was very disappointed. "I'm sorry, everyone. I tried my best," he said. "It's a shame, but Tidmouth sheds has gone up in flames," ended Flynn somberly. "You didn't try hard enough, did you?" said James. "If you did, we needn't have to be here right now." "Calm down, James. I'd like to speak to you once everyone else is gone anyhow," said the fat controller. "You too, Thomas. You both have something to do with this." "I'm going to miss my sheds," said Percy. "This was the first place I ever stepped when I arrived here." "I'm sorry this is my fault too," said Thomas. If only I hadn't let sparks fly from my funnel when I was in danger. In fact, this might be Toby's fault. This isn't my fault, said Toby. What's with the third degree? It's nobody's fault. These accidents happen, said Edward. Edward's right, said Henry. And since accidents happen, nobody's to blame. Yeah, nobody except Thomas, said Gordon. Don't forget James, said Emily. They're both to blame. One caused the fire with sparks and the other took Flynn's trailer. Had James not done that, Flynn would have been able to save the day. I'm sorry, everyone, said Flynn. He looked very shamefaced. I did the best I could, and soon we'll rebuild Tidmouth sheds, won't we? The other engines had to find other places to sleep, so they all left to go find other houses to reside in. They were all cross. This is Thomas and James's fault, the engines grumbled. Sorry, Thomas, said Percy. Henry and Edward went to sleep at Brendam Docks. Toby went back to Arsdale End, and Thomas and James stayed at the sheds looking very shamefaced and silent and solitary. Thomas spoke up. I'm sorry, sir, he apologized. I'm sorry too, said James. But you know, Flynn, I only took your trailer because you were boasting. And that doesn't make it any better, said the Fat Controller. For your punishment, you will sit in Homestead Hollow Yard until I can give you a better job to do. I am disappointed. And James, as for your inconsiderate misbehavior, you will talk to Edward about it, as he is wise. Yes, sir, said James. I can't believe the actions both of you have displayed in the last few days. Thomas pushing milk trucks off of a cliff, and then lighting the sheds on fire inadvertently. James jealously stealing Flynn's trailer. Now look at what's happened. But sir, Flynn was boastful. And I was feeling well, said Thomas. And this is Toby's fault anyway. James chuckled. You know, you both should talk to someone about what happened. Maybe that will help to give both of you some understanding. Don't you think? Thomas considered. He pondered for a moment. I'm off now, said Flynn. I've got to go see Belle at the Search and Rescue Center. She's just returned from the mainland. I've got to go too, said the Fat Controller. I've got to see the cafe at Knapford. They're still rebuilding that too. Oh, the island is in great trouble. And buffer to buffer, James and Thomas puffed off to work. James went to see Edward, and Thomas went to the yard. James backed down onto some coaches by the seaside. Then Edward pulled up alongside of him. Hello, James. The Fat Controller says he wants me to speak to you, whatever has happened. James told Edward all about being jealous of Flynn. Edward sympathized with James. Well, James, I hate to say it, but it is true. Jealousy is a cruel entity in the way of life, isn't it? It comes and goes and makes us do stupid things. Yes, agreed James, and I am sorry that my jealous actions and jealous nature got Tidmouth sheds engulfed in flames. I'm sure we can all find a way to forgive you, but next time, don't be so jealous. Daisy and Toby spoke to Thomas. So I understand, said Daisy, that Thomas, you have something to say to Toby, and Toby, you have something to say to Thomas. Yes, said Toby, I do. Thomas, there's no reason for you to be getting all upset because I'm transferring. But am I the reason that you are? Said Thomas. Yes, said Toby, you are. I just want to be in a yard where I'm respected and treated like my own. I sympathize with you, said Daisy. I'm sorry, Toby, that I have not been kind to you. I'm sorry I've told you to piss off, and I'm sorry I've called you other horrid names. Apology accepted, said Toby, but if you'll excuse me, I've other work to do. At another area. And he trundled away. I'm sorry, Thomas, said Daisy, but you know, things change. Yes, they do, said Thomas. And it's a true shame that things are changing, but maybe Toby moving will be a good thing. I'm choosing to stay in better spirits. Toby met up with Skiff at the port. Skiff the railboat presented Toby with a large statue-like model on the sea. Toby was puzzled. What is it? It's a special gift for the Sea Sailors Party this evening. It's a small, rock quarry-like mast made of quarry materials. Toby was impressed. Well done, Skiff, he said. Thank you. After all, the sailors did save me. And the Fat Controller saved me, said Toby. At least we have something in common, said Skiff. And I can tell I'm going to like it working here, said Toby. It'll be fun to enjoy in the fun of the seaside. Percy's told me many stories. Once, he met up with an old boat named Bulstrode who caused plenty of trouble, and they beached him here. Oh, they've just moved him off to Brendam Docks, said Skiff. They're going to give him lots of new work. Well, at least everyone's being put to good use now, said Toby. Mike, the miniature engine, was at the quarry junction when Bert sidled up alongside him at the signal. Hello, Mike. Hello, Bert. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just being a really reliable engine, something I fathom that you're not. Fathom? You're learning new words. And you got that one from me, didn't you? Yes, I did, said Bert. Just don't expect to be surprised later today. Mike was puzzled. But he thought nothing of the sort. Bert had a very sneaky plan up his funnel. Just then, above them, the engines heard a frightening ghost whistle. What's that? Said Bert. Stop pulling my wheels, said Mike. I know that's you. My whistle doesn't make that sound, said Bert, and he puffed away ominously, leaving Mike very unamused. Ugh, good riddance with that silly little boy, said Mike. One in the headlamp, said Bert. That's sure to spook him. But he wasn't so sure. Mike was at the water column at Allsborough West with his trucks. I can't believe that Bert trying to scare me. Then Bert came up in his silly way. He hid next to the trucks, right behind the water tower, and then he went peep really loudly. But nothing happened. He went peep again. Give it up, said Mike. You're not going to scare me. I'm too mature for your silly games. Says the engine with a projectile whistle, said Bert. So he had another idea. He gave Mike's trucks an extra hard shift.
Hey, what are you doing? Stop something, stop.
Bert had biffed the freight cars right into Mike, and Mike hit the rocks at the end of the tracks. What are you doing? Said Mike. You've caused an accident, he said. Later, Bert was at the quarry. He heard an engine coming. That must be Mike, he said, and he got the ghost whistle ready again. But it was only Hugo. You should stop whatever you're doing. It's not funny to play at the quarry. Oh, I'm trying to scare Mike, said Bert. Then he saw a troublesome truck in a siding, and that gave Bert a very naughty idea indeed. He knew just what to do. Sorry to surprise you, Hugo, but I know what I'm doing now, said Bert, staring at the truck. The truck was puzzled, but Bert had a very smart plan. I'm sure this will work, he said, and he buffered up to the freight car, and he pulled away as happily as he could to go find Mike once more. Mike, the miniature engine, had returned from the battle chute and arrived at the water tower at Allsborough West with his grumbling trucks. He pulled up to the water column and filled up with water for the next journey. His driver got out. Can you believe that Bert and his crew trying to spook us continuously? Right, said Mike to his driver. There are a lot of silly engines and people. Then Bert arrived with a special truck that he'd found at the quarry. Lendl the freight car made Bert blow the special ghost whistle. Ha 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 ha! Bert and Lendl thought this was a great joke, but Mike was unimpressed. Once again, Bert, you're not being a really resourceful and useful engine. You should do your work. I am doing my work, said Bert. No, you're not, said Lendl. Lendl the truck was crossed. You promised me I'd be really useful, and nobody's ever made me feel that way. You see, said Mike, even the trucks have had enough of your games, Bert. Give it up already. But Bert would not stop. I'll show you just how useful I am. Take me back to the quarry, said Lendl the truck. Oh, fine, said Bert. But Mike, you will see, said Bert. I'm going to get far away from him as possible, said Mike. For once, I'm trying to be really useful, and he keeps interrupting me. Bert made his way back to the quarry junction. Farmer Finney and Terence the tractor had spilled their load on the tracks and had gone for help. Bert didn't see the lime cart and he crashed right into it. Oh no, said Bert. Whatever is this mess here? We're covered in lime, said his driver. I'm off for help, he said. Bert was disappointed. He knew he'd be stuck there for a long while. Meanwhile, Mike was still taking on water and hissing mournfully. The trucks had finally stopped grumbling. Can you believe that, Bert? Pulling the wheel on us again, said Mike's driver. I do understand it's Halloween today, and Halloween is Bert's favorite holiday, but that's no reason to be a pest about it, said Mike. Right, said his driver, and he never knows how to let a joke be a joke. He always has to win and take everything too far. That's why I was glad when he went to crew. I finally had the line to myself, and I was free to just be me, said Mike. And I was free to happily work with trucks without being criticized for liking trucks more than passengers. The Fat Controller was at the quarry. He looked at the damage. Oh, so many repairs, he said. He wished the quarry hadn't blown up and Diesel 10 hadn't ransacked Sodor. Flynn was waiting at the junction near the farm when James arrived. Hello, James, said Flynn. What are you doing here? I've come to apologize, said James. Flynn, I'm sorry I took your trailer, and had I not done that, maybe you'd been able to save Tidman's sheds after what Thomas had done. That's all right, James, said Flynn, but if you don't mind my asking, why'd you do it? Because I was jealous, said James. Oh, well, don't worry, said Flynn. We all get jealous sometimes of newcomers, who just so happen to be better than us. I don't think you're better than me, said James. I just think that your paint might be shinier than mine, he gulped. Well, said Flynn, you shouldn't let a little bit of itty-bitty paintwork get in the way of your work ethic. You're right, said James, and I'm sorry, he said sheepishly. Please, can we be friends? Of course we can, James, said Flynn. Thank you, Flynn, said James. James was proud to have a good friend in Flynn. Goodbye, whistled James. Goodbye, said Flynn. I like James, said Flynn. He may not have shinier paint than me, but he is a good engine. All the engines went to sleep in new homes. Thomas slept at Southbury Village. Edward puffed across the suspension bridge to the diesel works. Henry slept in Homestead Hollow Yards. Gordon slept at the top of Gordon's Hill. James slept in Cullen Castle. And he hoped to dream about his new friend Flynn. Percy slept at South Homestead Hollow Station. And Toby slept outside Arsdale End. Emily was the only engine allowed to sleep near Tidman's sheds. And the Fat Controller slept at his new house near Southbury Village, awaiting Lady Hat's return from vacation. Later that evening, Mike was still at the water column when his driver came back. Bert's driver says that Bert has had an accident, cried Mike's driver. Oh no, said Mike. This is terrible. We must go and find him. At last, when the water column reached its peak, Mike's driver got in his cab and he drove Mike to Bert's rescue at once. Oh no, said Bert. Don't worry, soothed Bert's driver. Then Mike shuffled into the junction. Well, 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 said Mike. Look at what we have here. Please, no jokes, said Bert. I'm sorry, Mike. You were right, I should have been doing my work, and now I'm stuck. It's all right, said Mike. None of us are that really intelligent. Otherwise, we wouldn't get ourselves into trouble all the time with projectile whistles, wool incidents. And Mike pulled Bert away. They shunted Landel the truck into the siding, and Mike pushed Bert to the water column at Arlesboro West. "Are you all right?" said Mike. "I know that today's been quite the adventure for you, and I'm sorry, Mike, that I tried to spook you on multiple occasions. Tonight you have shown me that being really useful is far more important than being really talented and spooky." "Well," said Mike in an ominous voice. Then Bert heard the loud whistle again. "Oh, what's that?" he shivered. "It's just us celebrating Halloween our way in our style," said Mike.